Chosen ones, awaken. The world often doesn't realize God's removal of the chosen until it's too late. This departure isn't just absence, it's a warning. Throughout history, the presence of the chosen has shaped civilizations and nations, often unnoticed. But one day, the chosen ones disappear. Those who disturbed what needed to be disturbed, who spoke the truth no one wanted to hear. Just like that, they're gone. The result? Change, reckoning, and an emptiness no one expected. Donald Trump knows the power of the chosen ones. His rise has disrupted, challenged, and awakened the world. When the chosen leave, the systems they challenged will shift, and those who dismiss them will feel the consequences. The change is inevitable. Chosen ones, remember, your purpose was never to fit in, but to awaken, disrupt, and ignite change. Just like Donald Trump, your mission is to challenge and leave a mark. When you depart, it will be the beginning of a reckoning the world will never forget. Don't assume that this is only a metaphor. In the past, collapse, conflict, turmoil, and judgment have all been preceded by the abrupt removal of important figures. In the Bible, fire accompanied Lot's departure from Sodom. Devastation arrived when Jesus left the temple. Even today, society often only recognizes the significance of certain individuals until irreparable harm has been done. Therefore, if you're among those who dismissed the chosen's warnings like junk emails, scoffed at them, or disregarded what they had to say, now could be the time to start listening. Because when God determines that the purpose is complete and it is time to go, it is an event rather than just a departure. And believe me when I say that nobody enjoys what follows. First of all, you came here to collide, not to be comfortable. God's chosen people are not allowed to blend in. They don't live their lives in silence, unrecognized or unconcerned. Because they bring something that upsets the current quo. Their sheer presence generates conflict, not because they actively seek it out. Just their existence compels individuals to choose between supporting or opposing the truth. Things change as soon as they enter a location. False narratives, generational cycles, long-standing structures, and spiritual complacency start to crumble. Sometimes people experience discomfort without even understanding why. It's more profound than personality or charm. It's a heavenly mandate that prevents corruption from being undetected. This explains why God's chosen ones often encounter opposition, rejection, and betrayal. Not because they're doing improperly, but rather because they're carrying out their mission. They were brought here to reveal dysfunction, not to make peace with it. They were sent to serve as a warning that darkness still has an expiry date, not to be enjoyed. The problem is that they don't have much time. They were never intended to remain stationary. God takes people away when their purpose is done, not as a last-minute decision, but as a planned action. Others will eventually find that the exact thing they opposed was the only thing preventing judgment, while others will discover their absence too late. The purpose of the selected was to crash with what was never intended to stand, not to provide solace. Furthermore, their evacuation when their mission is accomplished is a statement rather than a retreat. Second, your departure is not a retreat but a divine plan. Leaving does not equate to defeat. It doesn't imply failure, giving up, or unresolved issues. God doesn't remove the chosen ones because they weren't strong enough to remain. Rather, it's because their mere existence has already fulfilled its purpose. They were just sent to change the mood, never to repair everything. After then, getting rid of them is not only required but also calculated. Their departure may be seen as desertion by some, or it could indicate that they were not as strong as they seemed to be. People consistently make that error. They believe that God's chosen people are destined to bear the burden of everything forever, as if their fortitude, intercession, and mere being are what prevent everything from collapsing. They were only ever intended to serve as a warning, a catalyst, or a temporary shield, however. The repercussions of what was disregarded, pushed aside, or battled against will be felt strongly after they are gone. Seldom do people realize the importance of someone's presence until it is taken away. Things don't just remain the same after the selected are gone. They start to fall apart. Their departure is evidence that grace has changed, not because the selected ones want disaster, People are not arbitrarily pulled out by God. It always indicates that a shift is coming, and not in a manner that most people will be prepared for. Those who believed they were in charge, believed they had more time, and believed they could continue to resist, they are going to learn what happens when the people containing the storm are no longer in the way. Because when God takes away the selected, history is being moved, not just humans. Third, you were there to address a problem that no longer required your assistance. The selected are never placed at random by God. For a specific reason, they are affixed to certain times, locations, and individuals. The existence of a country, city, family, or even a single individual is a response to a spiritual crisis, which most people are unaware of until it is too late. The fact is, however, that they were never intended to remain. Their presence was a supernatural solution to a situation that could not be solved in any other manner. Their position was transitory, and their mission had a deadline. People have no motivation to stay after the issue has been resolved, whether it means exposing it, moving it, or giving them one more chance to change. The majority of folks make mistakes here. They believe that the chosen ones are just fixtures in their life, always there, constantly praying, and constantly bearing the burden. They take the knowledge, the protection, and the cautions for granted. Some people even oppose or dislike them because they believe they will always exist. However, they disappear one day. No justification, no holdup, just gone. At that point, reality takes over. Those who disregarded them begin to sense their absence. The silence around them was gone. The favor of the supernatural is gone. Gone is the quiet protection. They then understand that the selected ones were more than simply another voice, person, or presence. Things hadn't gone apart sooner because of them. The selected are removed by God after their mission is finished. And that's a warning, not a comfort, for those who are left behind. Because darkness doesn't just reappear when the people who are bringing light are gone. It takes control. Fourth, you were sent to serve as a warning, not to be adored. Before they understand what it really entails, many like the notion of being God's chosen one. It does not imply approval, acclaim, or adoration. It entails stating things that others do not want to hear and entering areas where you are not welcome. It entails being branded as challenging, radical, or even dangerous, not because you are incorrect, but rather because you won't keep quiet. Prophets were not honored. Rather, they were stoned, banished, and killed, as history demonstrates. The greatest of them, Jesus himself, was not accepted. Rather, the same people he came to save betrayed, unjustly accused, and crucified him. For those he sends, why would it be different? It is not the role of God's chosen ones to console people in their delusions. They are sent to dismantle them, reveal falsehoods, upend established structures, and serve as a reminder that God is watching. The issue is that people prefer darkness over light. They like to be left alone and do not want to be roused. Resistance is thus unavoidable when a chosen one intervenes, wielding truth like a sword. The rejection is prophetic rather than personal. Truth-bearers have always encountered resistance from the world, in the belief that if they quiet the messenger, they can silence the message. They make fun of, reject, or attempt to destroy them. However, the reality's still there, as does the result of disregarding it. Don't be shocked if you are misinterpreted, shunned, or even despised. You were sent to warn them, not to win their hearts. Being adored was never your goal, but it's up to them whether they listen or not. Ensuring they had no justification when the time came was the goal. The fifth was that the world will never alter the way you had hoped. Every selected person must confront the terrible fact that, even being given the truth, not everyone will change. Some individuals will never wake up, no matter how much you preach, warn, pray, and do all you can. They don't want to, not because they don't comprehend. It's simple to think that people will open their eyes if you just say the correct things or show them enough affection. However, some people's hearts are hard to change. Some individuals are not sleeping. Rather, they are purposefully avoiding the truth because it contradicts their fantasies, their comfort, or their power. Furthermore, metamorphosis cannot be forced, no matter how hard you try. Something only God is able to provide. Because of this, your job was always to give the world a chance rather than to cure it. Everything you said, every warning you issued, and every second you spent attempting to rouse others wasn't done for your personal gratification. It was so that they wouldn't be able to claim, "I didn't know," when the time comes and everything they disregarded eventually falls apart. Your duty is to give the word, not to force others to listen. It is up to them and God to decide whether or not to accept it. Some won't change, while others will. In any case, you fulfilled your mission. Therefore, don't harbor disappointment. Don't bear the consequences of their choices. You were sent to ensure that the world had no justification when judgment arrived, not to alter it in the manner you had anticipated. Sixth, your agony was a physical message, not for you. The betrayals, rejection, loneliness, and pain you endured were never only about you. It wasn't misfortune, retribution, or a haphazard setback. There was a message. You were a warning in human form, a live prophecy. Not only do God's chosen ones tell the truth, they embody it. Because of their own challenges, traumas, and lives, they bear the weight of the message. Their whole being delivers a message before they even open their tongues. The proof of their life is unavoidable, even if others disregard what they say. The assaults occurred for that reason. That explains why you were misinterpreted, why people turned against you, and why doors that ought to have opened closed. Your life revealed things that others want to keep concealed, not because you were incorrect. You persevered. You didn't simply speak about it. You experienced betrayal, not merely warned about it. You experienced rejection directly. You didn't simply talk about it. The evidence was your pain. It demonstrated that what you mentioned was true and not only speculation. And others who observed had to decide whether to pretend they didn't see it or learn from what you went through. Your grief will lead some people to awaken, while others will choose to dismiss it until they go through it themselves. In any case, your pain wasn't in vain. Therefore, don't consider your scars to be just wounds. They serve as proof that you conveyed the message. You were sent to become the warning, not only to warn others, and your life will serve as evidence that they have every opportunity to listen, whether they do or do not. Seventh, your quiet now is more powerful than your ever-present presence. Sometimes people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone. They listen, but they don't hear. They see, but do not comprehend. You disappear one day after that. No more prayers, cautions, or presence to keep things together. At that point, reality sets in. Your absence is a heavenly proclamation rather than just a vanishing. The individuals who rejected you will begin to see the change. Gone was the tranquility they had taken for granted. They were elevated by the protection they were unaware was there. It finally makes apparent why they rolled their eyes at the advice. This is God's way. He takes the selected ones away, not just to keep them safe, but also to awaken others who did not pay attention when they had the opportunity. Some people will think back and see their error. Others will rush to fill the vacuum with someone else. However, things won't be the same, because it was a heavenly duty, and what you carried was more than simply compassion or wisdom. Furthermore, convenience cannot take the place of duties. Your words will never be heard above the stillness you leave behind. People are now experiencing the loss of what you carried, not simply hearing what you spoke. And that's the true caution. Your disappearance serves as a reminder that grace has its boundaries, if your presence was an expression of it. You will have to live with the thought that others who disregarded, made fun of, or rejected you had access to something unique and heavenly, but they let it pass them by. Eighth, for everyone around you, your task served as a final exam. It was always a test for you to be in people's life. For them, not for you. Everything about them was being recorded, including how they handled you, how they answered you, and whether they paid attention to you or not. They were dealing with a heavenly mission, even if other people believed they were simply dealing with another regular human. God has used individuals as opportunities, warnings, and second chances throughout history. However, the pattern keeps happening. They are insulted, harassed, or ignored. In his own hometown, Jesus was sent away. Prophets faced mockery, derision, and sometimes death. The world has a history of failing these tests and then having to deal with the fallout. Some of the individuals you met had an opportunity to identify with you and adjust their behavior appropriately. Instead, they cast doubt on you, spread rumors, or even worked against you. Not because they were ignorant, but rather because they were unwilling to believe that God had put anything holy in their path. They passed up the chance to be blessed. The test has now finished. Their destiny has been determined by their reaction. They no longer have the time to listen to you, to treat you well, or to pay attention. Some people will discover who you were and what you carried too late. The judgment that follows, however, is not eliminated by awareness. Relocating is just one aspect of God's removal of the selected. Another is shutting the book on those who will not see. The results are in. The test has been graded. They will now live with their decision. The conflict is larger than you, says number 9. It's a calculated move to remove you. You are not the only person in your life. Your mission extends beyond your own comfort and pleasure. You are a part of a larger spiritual conflict. Furthermore, God advances you strategically rather than at random. When a soldier is moved from one position to another, they don't question why. They don't challenge the commands, the timing, or the methods. They have faith that something greater than themselves is at work, that there is a greater design. Similarly, when God moves you from one location to another, it's because your task has changed. It's possible that you believe you're doing the right things, holding ground, and at the proper spot. However, God has an aerial view of the battlefield and is well aware of the plan. And sometimes it entails moving the selected ones. God takes you out so the fight may be fought in a different manner after your job is fulfilled and your presence in a particular location or time is no longer required. When you're in the thick of something, it's difficult to comprehend. You may feel as if you are being ignored, marginalized, or even thrown away. In actuality, however, your removal is a component of a more extensive strategic maneuver. God is considering the whole fight, not just one particular conflict. And sometimes moving the pieces in ways we can't understand is the greatest way to win. A degree of confidence that isn't focused on seeing the outcome right now, but rather on trusting that God's purpose is bigger than what we can currently understand is necessary to trust His timetable and His plan. He dismisses you because your position has changed, not because you failed. The fight is currently progressing in a manner that beyond your capabilities. 10th, your presence was the sole reason some individuals were protected. Many people are unaware that your presence served as a shield as well as consolation for those around you. Because of you, God's favor was resting on individuals, places, and circumstances. You were the grace they couldn't merit, the cover they didn't deserve. Your life served as a kind of spiritual canopy, offering compassion and protection when none was requested or even recognized. And throughout your whole stay, they were protected by the grace that God showered upon you. However, that canopy is taken away when your task is done, and God takes you away. They are no longer covered by the elegance they had and the defense they unwittingly relied upon. The repercussions they escaped while you were present will now come back to haunt them. Whether it was a town that prospered, a business that prospered, or a family that remained together, it was all made possible by your presence at its core, surrounded by God's favor. The fact that you will be removed will strike you hard. They didn't comprehend that you were the source of the tranquility. They will now perceive the favor that appeared to come to them out of the blue for what it was: borrowed, transient, and dependent on your presence. After you're gone, some will attempt to activate that protection, but it will be too late. It was always a product of your obedience, your trust, and your duty. The covering you gave them was never theirs to retain. This will serve as a sharp reminder to some that the grace they once took for granted has disappeared. They will now have to deal with the fallout from their decisions. And they'll question why they didn't see the importance of your presence earlier, maybe too late. 11th, you weren't a permanent fixture. You were a brief disturbance. You were never intended to be a fixture. God's chosen ones are positioned purposefully to cause trouble rather than to camp out. You weren't sent to be a constant or to fit in. A wrecking ball meant to shake things up and start things going. You were a momentary force of heavenly upheaval. Furthermore, that kind of fire doesn't burn in one spot for very long. Let's face it. That fire would have gone out if you had lingered too long and attempted to settle down. A mound of icy ashes would have replaced what had once been a flame of truth and transformation. The selected are sent by God to cause unrest, not to blend in. You were put there to confront, awaken, stir things up, and sometimes make people uncomfortable, whether it's a scenario, an attitude, or a group of individuals. The divine wrecking ball's purpose is to upend everything that isn't based in truth, to dismantle anything that isn't based in God's will, and to shake people out of their complacency. However, the position is seldom long-term. People would have stopped listening if you had remained too long. It would not have hurt as much. They would have forgotten the task. The purpose of God's fire is not to be extinguished by familiarity. It is intended to burn purposefully, brightly, and powerfully. When it's time to move on, it does so before it becomes boring. You were just there for a short period. You weren't supposed to be here forever. You were sent to make a difference, to stir things up, and then to go on. Additionally, the precise change that was required is left behind after you go, leaving the echo of your interruption. You were only meant to plant in hard soil. You weren't allowed to witness the crop. Success isn't always what we expect it to be. For many people, success is seeing the rewards of their hard work materialize. Success, however, wasn't about reaping for you. It has to do with planting. You were summoned to the hard land, the inaccessible locations, and the stony or dry soil that no one else could deal with. Instead of collecting the produce, your task was to penetrate the hard, unforgiving areas and plow the seemingly inaccessible soil. Your calling was never about observable outcomes, yet it's easy to feel that your labor was lacking since you didn't see the progress. You weren't supposed to remain long enough to see the crops and plants flourish. It was your responsibility to get the land ready for another person. It was you who broke down boundaries and circumstances that others believed were irreparable, opening hearts that had been locked for years. Furthermore, you sowed seeds in soil that would later be tended by others, even if you were not around to see the results of your effort. In actuality, not every seed sprouts right away. Some could not even appear throughout your lifetime, while others will take years to grow. However, it does not negate the value of your labor. You were not a harvester, you were a cultivator. The silent, invisible labor of getting ready for a harvest you may never see firsthand is often the toughest task. Instant satisfaction was never the goal of your quest. It included sowing seeds in areas where others were afraid to go, with the hope that someone else would eventually come along and harvest the fruit. Your departure does not signal the end of your influence. Rather, it signals the start of judgment. God never takes his chosen away in a silent, imperceptible way. An obvious indication that things is about to change, and not in the manner people anticipate. It's a prophetic alert. You were the last warning and the last call, not simply a presence. You continue to have an impact even when God takes you out of a circumstance or location. It signifies the start of judgment. The final line of defense against what was about to happen is you. Consider it this way. You weren't there only to talk. It was to intervene, to stand between God's anger and people in need of compassion, and to prevent a tsunami of repercussions. You could have felt like the unheard voice and unrespected individual when you were there, but the storm was averted by your presence. The storm is free to arrive now that you have been eliminated. The people, places, and systems you impacted will now have to deal with the consequences of their actions. This is about other people's responsibility, not about punishing you. There are repercussions for how they handled you, how they disregarded your warnings, and how they disregarded the message you sent. Your departure is not the end of your legacy. Rather, it is the time when they will be held accountable for their actions in response to what you contributed. The outcome of their reluctance to acknowledge the message will now be seen by those who made fun of or abused you. Additionally, it will be too late for some people to wake up. The quiet that ensues when God transfers his chosen is a precursor to judgment, not a state of peace. Additionally, your leaving will serve as the loudest reminder to those who didn't pay attention that they had an opportunity. Glamour was never intended for your task. It had nothing to do with getting praise. blending in, or winning the respect of others. Obedience was always the key. You took the call, answered, and completed the task assigned to you. Since your reward was never connected to material acknowledgement, there was no need for praise or need for acceptance. It was about achieving your goals, no matter how challenging, isolating, or misinterpreted they may be. Don't turn around now that it's time for you to go. The done is the done. Nothing can alter the fact that your assignment is sealed. You have been held accountable for the words you said, the seeds you sowed, and the lives you impacted. Your compliance was sufficient. Nothing that God has written for you can be taken away. It's time to go now that you arrived and complied. It wasn't for you to witness the results of your labor. It was to fulfill the bigger plan that God had for you and everyone in your vicinity. Therefore, don't question if your travel was worthwhile or second-guess it. You were sent, you did what you were told, and now you're leaving. The rest is in God's hands. Your time here is over. Whether you can see it or not, have faith that the effect you made will continue to have an impact. Now that you've done your part, you may go with the knowledge that you accomplished your goal just as it was intended to be. Do not ignore this message if it struck a chord with you. Distribute it. It's important for someone to hear it. To ensure you don't miss out on more insightful articles like this one, click the subscribe button to remain updated. If the video resonated with you, please like it and leave a comment to share your opinions. Which aspect of this resonated with you? You have a voice, and it can serve as the reminder that someone else needs. Remember to share this video as well. Perhaps you have a friend or relative who needs a reminder that they are not traveling this path alone, a wake-up call, or a new outlook. Share this with them to help them discover the truth. Let's continue the discussion. Remind ourselves that we are all a part of something far greater and spread the word. Your involvement is really important. Together, let's continue to advance. Thank you for viewing.